기자부대! Hop on the beat!
Welcome back to Debunking Araki Forgot. Last time I said that I doubted I'd have enough topics for yet another extras video, but of course I was wrong again and we have another big list of things to go over. Along with some new things I've never covered before, I'll be going back to older topics that I wasn't entirely clear on and may need some further elaboration. The first topic comes from part 1. After the scene that introduces Tarkus and Bruford, Dio can be seen with an ability that allows him to disappear. Some have asked what this ability is and why he never used it again. The first thing to make clear is that this is something that only happens in the anime. In the manga version of this same scene, Dio simply jumps away. As for what this ability is, it seems like Dio is turning into mist. This is a classic vampire power that's been present ever since the original Dracula novel, although I have no idea why this was added for the anime, since it just causes confusion when he never does it again. Next is a common reply I've gotten to one of the topics in my video on real Araki Forgots. In that video I mentioned how Joseph was able to notice that Straizo was a vampire because his breath wasn't making fog when it was cold out. This is contradicted by Dio's first appearance as a vampire in part 1, where he does have fog when he breathes. Some have countered this by saying that Straizo wasn't breathing at all, since breathing as a Hamon user would kill him. That simply just isn't what's going on here, and that's not how Hamon works. The whole point of the scene is that Joseph sees that he is breathing, but there's no fog. And you breathe when you talk anyway, so he would have seen the fog there. Also, simply breathing doesn't cause Hamon to generate. The only way to make Hamon is by using Hamon breathing techniques, which Straizo consciously does at the end of the fight to kill himself. I got a comment asking how in part 2, Wamu was able to know what the dynamite did when Joseph tried to use it against him. This is explained by the already established intelligence of the Pillarmen. Santana was said to be the least intelligent one, and he was able to instantly figure out how a gun worked seconds after picking it up. Similarly, Wamu was able to figure out the purpose of the UV lights the Nazis were using and found a way to counter it just by looking at them. Also, this comment seems to mention that Wamu called it dynamite by name. However, in the manga, Wamu refers to it simply as that thing you lit with dynamite in parentheses. In the anime, Wamu just calls it an explosive. However, I finally found a place where he does call it dynamite, which is in the English dub of the anime. So I would definitely consider this to be a mistake on the dub's part. However, in the original versions of both, he never actually calls it dynamite. Some have asked why the vampires seen throughout part 2 didn't use their special vampire abilities like Space Ripper Stingy Eyes and freezing like Dio and Straizo did. This is because Dio learned these techniques through experimentation using his vampire body over the course of many months. The vampires in part 2 are just foot soldiers for the Pillarmen and don't have ambition like Dio did. As for how Straizo knows of these abilities, he explains that he learned it from watching Dio back in part 1, which is also the reason he wanted to become a vampire in the first place. One comment I've gotten is related to Joseph's clackers, making this the third time I've had to talk about these godforsaken things in a video. The person says that it doesn't matter that Joseph's clackers were broken by Wired Beck, since he can simply create new ones using Hamon, like Caesar creating bubbles from Hamon. Now, I don't know what you have to smoke to actually believe something like this, since this is honestly crazy. This person apparently thinks that Hamon can just create matter out of nowhere and summon clackers. They also seem to be completely unaware of how Caesar's bubbles actually work, since Caesar explained this very clearly alongside the introduction of his ability. Caesar's bubbles are made from a soapy liquid that he uses to coat his clothes and gloves, and the Hamon is used to maintain the shapes of the bubbles he makes with these. This one definitely fits in with the list of the stupider comments I've gotten. The most sought-after object in part 2 is the Red Stone of Aja, which Kars wants to use to become the ultimate being. A lot of fans have asked why they didn't just destroy the Red Stone before Kars could get it. This was actually directly explained in a scene with Lisa. She says that according to a legend, if the stone was destroyed, then it would be impossible to beat the Pillarmen. Some people aren't satisfied with this, however, and ask how this could possibly be the case, since none of the Pillarmen are directly defeated by the Red Stone. I'm disappointed in this lack of out-of-the-box thinking, since just because a Pillarman wasn't defeated directly by the stone doesn't mean it wasn't integral to their defeat. In fact, almost every fight with the Pillarmen has something to do with it. Of course, there is Ultimate Cars, who was defeated by the power of the Red Stone, but that's not really fair since he wouldn't have become the ultimate life form without the stone in the first place. SCDC wouldn't have come to the island if the stone wasn't there in the first place, and that led to his defeat. And the battles with Wamu and Cars were only possible due to the Red Stone, since Lisa threatened to destroy the stone if they didn't listen to her demands and arrange a fair fight. Otherwise, Joseph and Lisa would have just been killed by the army of vampires and lost anyway. So yes, the Red Stone was absolutely necessary to defeat the Pillarmen, just like the prophecy said. As for how such a prophecy could exist in the first place, we're well aware that fate is real in JoJo and people giving accurate fortunes is pretty common. But even more important is that we know the ability of Hamon itself is able to interact with fate and view the future, which is the origin of the Hamon clan's prophecy. At the beginning of Part 3, we see some flashbacks from Holly's perspective of Jotaro as a good kid, before seeing that he's a delinquent. Some have asked how this is the case, when we see in the fight with Alessi that even as a kid, Jotaro was tough. I believe this is because of Holly's personality, and that she always views Jotaro in a positive light. Even with how he's acting during Part 3, Holly still acts oblivious to it. For a similar topic, someone else has brought up that during the fight with Kakyoin we see some flashbacks of Jotaro's delinquent behavior before. This person seems to think that this couldn't have happened, since Jotaro only became a delinquent after he was first possessed by Star Platinum. This just isn't the case, and I'm not sure where they got this idea. Nothing in the story suggests that Jotaro's behavior was changed by Star Platinum. In fact, the reason Jotaro discovered Star Platinum's power in the first place was while he was already in a fight and it came out to protect him. Since he was already fighting, this clearly shows he was still a delinquent at that time. In Part 3, Dio can be seen using a stand similar to Hermit Purple. Back in my Part 3 video, I pointed out that Araki has said this is actually the stand of Jonathan's body. However, some have asked how it's possible for Dio to be using Jonathan's stand, since stands are based on life energy and Jonathan is dead. This is because Jonathan's body itself does actually have life in it and somewhat of a mind of its own. This is how the body was able to reject Dio for a time, and how it sent out the distress signal that forced out the Joestar stands and started the story in the first place. Dio explicitly refers to Jonathan's body as a separate entity that's working against him. This is why it's able to have its own stand ability even if it's not able to fully control it by itself. One topic I've seen people bring up ever since my Part 3 video was the idea of who can see through the eyes of their stand. Back in that video, I mentioned that Polnareff is unable to see through the eyes of Silver Chariot. This is how he was blinded from underneath the bed and needed the TV to see inside of Joseph in the lovers' fight. However, some people have said this can't be the case since other stands are capable of sight. I have no idea how people reach this conclusion, since I never suggested that no stands were capable of being seen through. In fact, in the very fight where Polnareff was blinded, Ebony Devil was being seen through by Devo. Some others who are known to be able to see through their stands are Jotaro, who uses Star Platinum's eyes to look long distances, Kakyoin, who was able to see Dio with his stand in the final battle, and Koichi in Part 4, who uses Echo's Act 1 to scout long distances. As for why some stands can see and others can't, it's the same reason that stands have different ranges or levels of strength. It's just different depending on the stand. When the group arrives in Egypt in Part 3, the Speedwagon agent tells them that 9 hooded figures were spotted leaving Dio's mansion, hinting at the 9 Egyptian god stand users that the group fights. However, some have asked how it's possible that there are 9 people here, since 2 of the Egyptian god stand users are non-humanoid. We have Pet Shop, who is a bird, and Anubis, who is a sword. For Anubis, this is clearly explained by the fact that someone had to carry Anubis over to the location where he was found by Chaka in the first place. For the other, I think this hooded figure is actually Kenny G, one of Dio's other human stand user minions from inside the mansion. Another thing I've seen people ask is during the scene where Dio moved Polnareff down the stairs. They ask why Dio didn't just kill him while he had the chance. This is one of those weird things JoJo fans do where they view the content of a scene, but somehow don't comprehend anything going on in it. Since if you just simply look at the dialogue in that very scene, you see that Dio is telling Polnareff to join him again and fight against his friends. Dio's own words in the scene show that he has no intention of killing Polnareff at this time, and he really had no reason to since Dio was completely confident in his own abilities to kill the entire group. Some people have asked how characters are able to move when they're in time stop, since their clothes would be frozen in time. I have no idea how someone could just completely forget how time stop works in JoJo, since you can clearly see characters manipulating frozen objects multiple times. Their clothes would just move with them like anything else they touch. One thing I went over in my Part 3 video was the idea of a stand's true range versus their effective range. There I brought up that a stand's effective range does not necessarily equal its maximum range. This is supported by the JoJo A Go-Go Stand Dictionary, which states that some stands can go outside of their designated range, and slowly lose power the further away they get. The best example of this is Star Platinum. It is said to have a basic range of 2 meters. However, it is capable of moving outside this range in exchange for a loss of power. However, people seem to take this point as me saying that all stands can do this. This isn't what I said at all, since I said that a stand's range is not necessarily equal to its effective range. The 2 examples people bring up are Crazy Diamond, who was seen hitting its maximum range in the surface fight, and Echoes, who we saw hit its maximum 50-meter range in the Sheer Heart Attack fight. But these don't contradict what I said at all. For those stands, the effective range is equal to their maximum range. Just like with stand sight and other stand statistics, these vary from stand to stand. In Part 4, we see Jotaro using binoculars in the hunting arc. However, some people point out that Jotaro is capable of seeing long distances with Star Platinum, so he shouldn't need binoculars. This is true, but this doesn't mean he would just be walking around with Star Platinum out all the time, especially in this fight when they wanted to stay hidden from the stand. However, the whole reason Jotaro had these binoculars in the first place was answered in this very fight, since he immediately hands them to Josuke for him to use. Some asked why Kira was able to feel the effects of Echo's Act 3 on his hand through Sheer Heart Attack, but when Jotaro was punching it, he felt nothing. This is because Sheer Heart Attack is an infinitely durable stand. Despite the little bits of cosmetic damage to it, the stand itself is incapable of actually taking damage, so Kira would be unaffected by any blows dealt to it. This is seen with a lot of stands with high durability. For example, Star Platinum is durable enough to punch through a wall, but Jotaro himself wouldn't be. It's only when the threshold for a stand's durability is crossed that a user actually starts taking damage from it. However, stand abilities such as 3 Freeze or Crazy Diamond's healing do affect his hand, since they have nothing to do with Sheer Heart Attack's durability. One question I got was asking why Clash didn't just teleport into Narancia's blood and kill him, since the stand can teleport into any liquid. However, this was not possible, since according to Clash's stat page, it is unable to teleport into closed-off bodies of water, such as water inside of a sealed bottle. Some have asked why Giorno and the other Sons of Dio aren't vampires, since their father was one. This is simply not how being a vampire works in JoJo. A person undergoes a transformation into a vampire when their brain is pierced by the stone mask and awakens their inner potential. A vampire is not something you can be born as in JoJo. You have to actually undergo a transformation to become one. Someone asked me why Jotaro and Jolene were able to use their stands inside of the dream, since in Part 3 it was said that you have to have your stand active outside of a dream to be able to use it in one. However, what happened in Part 6 wasn't actually a dream. It was an illusion created by Whitesnake, so it wouldn't follow the traditional dream rules. Another thing related to this is someone who asked why Whitesnake showed Manhattan Transfer's real ability in the dream. Since Pucci has control over whatever appears, this person thinks that Pucci should have instead portrayed a different ability, so that if they escape from the dream, they would be easier to defeat. However, this person is missing the entire point of the fight, which was directly explained by Jotaro. Pucci deliberately showed Jotaro what Manhattan Transfer's real ability was, so that later outside of the dream he would know to move and defend Jolene. This is so Pucci would be able to steal Jotaro's stand discs while he was distracted, which was his real goal in this fight. During the final battle of Part 6, Emporio is seen aiming his ghost gun at Pucci. However, some people say there's no reason for him to do this, since as we saw earlier, the ghost gun doesn't actually work on people, only on ghost objects. However, what these people seem to miss is that Pucci doesn't know about the ghost gun. Also, Emporio was already acting completely in desperation at this point. He probably wasn't concerned so much with actually shooting Pucci as he was with scaring him away. For Part 7, many people have asked how the character Poco Loco got his stand. In my Part 7 video, I went over a similar topic, where people asked how many of the characters got their stands without having absorbed a corpse part. There I explained that these characters got their stands from walking through a devil's palm, which was directly explained by many of them. However, some have said that Poco Loco was very unlikely to have come across one. This is true, but passing through a devil's palm is not the only way to receive a stand ability. In JoJo Velar, it was actually confirmed that Poco Loco's stand was not created as a result of a devil's palm. The stand actually awakened on its own, due to Poco Loco's confidence and innate luck after it was told to him by the fortune teller. And that's all of the other Araki Forgot topics I've gotten so far. However, there are always new questions coming up that I've never seen before, and I'll likely be back to make another video going over them. If you have any more Araki Forgot topics to go over, comment them down below. As for the next main debunking video on Part 8, I'm waiting until at least the start of Part 9 to begin making it. This is because in all of my other debunking videos, I've always had information from future parts to work with, which is often very important when it comes to certain topics. I think some information on Part 9 is definitely going to be integral to a lot of things that happened in Part 8. However, I have already begun work on most of the video's topics, so when the time comes, I'll have a head start on it. If you want to be updated on new videos or leave suggestions, join the Hamon Beat Discord using the link in the description. To receive rewards like Discord perks and some uncut videos, you can support the channel on Patreon. And finally, for future videos, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. This is the part of the video where I thank my $5 and up patrons. Thank you to Tony, The Owl God, Alex Ramirez, Raziana, Doorbell, Cloudy, Monkman, Ashton Joseph Miller, Crayon, Jesper Jansen, Rigo Vids, Zukato, Shane Giger, Sentai, Pumpkin Doge, Marrow, Bailey Smile, Ali, Almighty Quarth, Oof, PBASVG, Cowrie, and Jojo Agogo.